What evidence did you find to prove David Crowley was guilty of a double murder-suicide? And the response was MNBCA analysis results. So the Minnesota BCA results are what led Detective Gummert and the police to believe that David Crowley was guilty of a double murder-suicide. Well, we don't have those results. We don't have, at least a common citizen does not have access to those results yet. So we're going to try to keep looking for them. And how long did it take to come to that conclusion? And he says it took the BCA several months to send back the results. So even though it took the BCA several months to conclude, to show the results that David Crowley was guilty, we know that from day one, within hours, we have confirmation now from Detective Gummert. Within hours, the police were already speculating that David Crowley was guilty. And they will spend the next year trying to prove their case to themselves, not to the public. Question 2. Several reports state body parts such as hands were missing. Can you clarify as to whether or not body parts were missing from the entire crime scene? And he does clarify that. He says, yes, he says parts were missing from scene. So we're talking about 2 heads, 2 skulls, David's skull, Kamel's skull, David's right hand, both of Kamel's hands, and the daughter's right arm, I believe, and the whole shoulder from the arm socket was missing. That's a lot of body parts missing. That's a lot of bones missing. That's a lot missing. So I found that very interesting. And what happened to these missing body parts? Well, the dog ate, is what they're basically saying. So nothing new to a lot of people who have been following this case since it first started. But it was interesting to get confirmation that these body parts were in fact missing from the whole scene. They weren't found somewhere else in the house, like some people tried to tell us. They were not found, ever. Very interesting to me. That to me is very, very interesting. I can't stress that enough. We'll cover this more later on, but question 3. The murder weapon was found near David's left hand, yet there are many pictures that clearly show David pointing a gun with his right hand. Do you believe David was right-handed or left-handed? Gummert then answers that David was right-handed. So why it's very important to understand if David was right-handed or left-handed, obviously, is because of where the gun was found, where the murder weapon was found. The murder weapon that we still don't have a picture of, where it was found was next to David's left hand, even though David was right-handed. And Kamel's sister says that David basically shot himself in the mouth. So you shoot yourself in the mouth with your right hand, and the gun ends up near your left hand. We're talking a foot, a couple inches, very close to the left hand. So that was interesting too. Where would the gun go? So that was very strange. This was a question that was posed. Number 4 was actually a question that was given to me by Sean Helton of 21st Century Wire. And it's a very specific question. Were there any latent fingerprints on the blood-smeared wall? And the answer is no. No, there were not. So, what led the police to believe that it was David actually writing this? Well, just because they found DNA on that wall, which they should find his DNA on that wall, especially if he painted that wall or was near that wall or did anything to that wall. They would also find the wife's DNA too. Who else's DNA would they find? Well, let's go from there. Number 5. Images of the murder weapon were provided to Tom Lydon, Fox News 9 anchor, who I assume filled out the same disclosure form as I did. Yet I did not receive at least 3 images. that Tom Lydon did, including the image of the murder weapon on a living room table, red blood footprints on a hardwood floor. Now, if I file another disclosure request for those specific images, will I receive the images requested? I would also request an image of the murder weapon where it was found, even a censored version. And he says, fill out another disclosure form with a specific request and I will see what I can do. So that's cool. At least he's not just completely discounting it. But this is important. When we fill out a disclosure request, it's very important to be as specific as we possibly can with what we are asking for, to know what we are asking for. A lot of times I have no idea how to phrase it in a specific way to get the answer that I'm looking for. So we'll keep trying until we finally do get those same photos that Tom Lydon got, and also a photo of where the murder weapon was actually found. So number 6, I said, is it possible, based on evidence found at the crime scene, that Kamel was shot first and Rainey was not immediately shot after? And he says it is possible. Follow-up question with that, was Rainey's blood or flesh found on Kamel's body? And the answer is no. So they did not find Rainey's blood or flesh on Kamel's body, which if they both died at the same time, you probably would find that. So there's another reason to believe that Kamel and Rainey were shot at different times. And the question is why? Why would that be? Number 7, early media reports suggested Daniel Crowley Jr. went to David's house on December 26th or December 27th of 2014. However, in police reports, it is clear Daniel Crowley Jr. stated he was at his brother's house on December 28th. Was Daniel ever asked about the various dates as to when he went to the Crowley residence? And the answer is no. Why would they ask? The police report is very clear. We all know where this 26th and 27th date came up did not come from police. It came from the news media, I believe. So number 8. Is it true that police went to the Crowley residence on 3 separate occasions? Once after the bodies were discovered, a second time after a mushroom bullet was discovered, and the third time on February 18th, 2015, when they found a bullet hole near the living room ceiling? And he says yes. Nothing new, but something that really I wanted to verify just to make sure that we had all of our ducks in a row here, because it is very strange that they would have to come back to the house the third time, and 2 times they did not see a bullet above their heads in the living room. How is that possible? That to me is one of the biggest questions here, one of the biggest things that's happening here. Number 9. Was water found in any of the toilets in the Crowley residence? How did the family dog Paleo survive for 3 weeks? And he says yes. And then comma, C answer to question 2. So he's saying yes. Was there water found in any of the toilets in the Crowley residence? He says yes. How did the dog survive? Well, the missing body parts. That's what he's saying. That's how the dog survived. How do they know if they're missing? Number 10. Chris Klein. Do you know when a neighbor called the Apple Valley Police Department to report a suspicious person in the Crowley residence on January 19th, 2015? And he just simply says yes. So again, it's all about how we phrase these questions to get the answers we want. But I wanted, as much as possible, I really wanted to make the questions so simple that he could simply answer them in a yes or no fashion. And mostly, that's exactly what he did. There isn't one answer, I believe, that has 3 sentences to it, but he does give a little explanation as to why the answers were so short and sweet. Number 11. The suspicious person was Chris Klein. How was Chris Klein identified as the suspicious person the neighbor was referring to? And he just simply says it's unknown. So they don't know, or we don't know, but one of the things to ask for in a future disclosure request will be the 911 call involving Chris Klein on January 19th, 2015. Okay, number 12. Chris Klein stated he was in the house with Daniel Crowley Sr. and Daniel Crowley Jr., even though the neighbor apparently only reported one suspicious person. Dan Sr. denied being in the house with Chris Klein. Dan Sr. told Detective Sean McKnight, quote, well, Detective McKnight is quoted here, saying that Daniel Sr. told me that he was not aware of the bullet hole and had not gone into the home with Klein. So I asked Gummert, do you know if it was ever discovered who was telling the truth and who was not? You have Chris Klein saying that he was in the house with Daniel Sr. You have Daniel Sr. saying he was not in the house with Chris Klein, and the police admit that they never followed up on it. They just let it go. Not the best police work, in my opinion. Number 13. Are there images from 1/17/15? Are there images from January 17, 2015 that show a bullet hole near the living room light? He says yes. So they took the photos, but it took them a month to realize, and they probably would have never realized that there was a bullet hole above their heads in the Crowley living room if it wasn't for Chris Klein, even though they had the photos. So how thoroughly did they even look through these photos? How thoroughly did they look through anything? How thoroughly did they look through the house if they had to come back 3 separate times? It's not like this was just a random bullet hole that was found in the living room. This was the bullet hole that led to the bullet that they say killed David Crowley. That's something they should have followed up on. Now, are there number 14. Did you see the bullet hole in the living room ceiling on January 17, 2015? Here's what he says. This is very important here. I saw it, comma, unknown of exact date. So he is not admitting that he saw the bullet hole on January 17. He's not giving a specific date of when he saw that bullet hole. He knows when he saw the bullet hole and when he didn't see the bullet hole. It's okay. If you didn't see it on January 17th, it's fine. We're all human. We all mess up. And it's just more reason to reopen this case, I believe, based on that. Number 15. Was the Department of Homeland Security or the FBI involved in your investigation, or were they conducting their own investigation? Now, I asked this question because Mason Hendricks told me that the reason why the investigation was taking so long, why it took over a year, close to a year, was because the FBI and Homeland Security had to sign off on it. Obviously, again, somebody's story doesn't match, because Detective Gummert says that they were not contacted, no investigation. As far as Gummert knows, the FBI and the Homeland Security were not involved at all. Very interesting. So, and I asked him, did you ever speak with Kamel's father? And he said no, which was strange too. I don't understand why he wouldn't speak with them. I mean, obviously the father was going through some very difficult times with the mother, but somebody should have reached out to the other person. Now, to be fair, the other daughter, Kamel's sister named Sidra, she was in constant contact with Detective Gummert, so maybe Gummert felt there was no need to contact the father. Maybe the father felt there was no need to contact the cops because Sidra was handling it. Number 17. I received a 94-page PDF document full of police reports. Are there police reports that were excluded in the 94-page PDF? And he says no, leading me to believe that what we got, the 94 pages of police reports, that's all there is. That's all there is. That's what he's saying. Alright, now I received number 18. I received 464 images from the AVPD after filling out their disclosure request form. How many images were possibly withheld? Hundreds? Thousands? And the answer is hundreds. We did not receive hundreds of photos. So, we're losing a little light here. We're going to keep going. Number 19, is it possible to get censored images that will help prove 3 bodies were found at the Crowley residence on January 17, 2015? And he says no. This is the big key here, because one of the biggest criticisms is that there's no evidence of any bodies. And I've been trying to disprove that by just saying, give us something. Give us something. Show us something. And I can understand why they wouldn't. If it was my family member, at first I probably wouldn't want those images out there, but I might release 1 or 2 censored versions just so people realize that there were bodies, that there were 3 bodies there, not dummies, as Colin Prochnow first stated, and then later realized that there were 3 bodies, not 3 dummies in the house. Now, number 20, is it possible to get the medical examiner's report or BCA reports in addition to what has already been provided? He said you will have to contact them. So we need to fill out separate disclosure request forms with the medical examiner, with the Hennepin medical examiner, and with the BCA. And let's see what results we actually get. Last question, number 21. What did you find within hours after arriving at the crime scene that led you to believe David Crowley was guilty of a double murder-suicide? And he just says, assessment of scene. So assessing that scene, which couldn't have took more than hours, because they arrived at 1 o'clock and the scene was cleared at 5 p.m. So 4 hours they were there. So within 4 hours of assessing this scene, they had made up their mind that David Crowley was guilty of a double murder-suicide. Now, in addition to answering these 21 questions, Gummert also took a little time to explain his answers, which I really appreciated. He says, Mr. Fernandez, I understand my answers are short and to the point, but based on your questions, you have read all of our reports and there is nothing more to add on my end. If we did not cover it in our reports, then we did not feel it necessary to do so. Wow. Well, okay. He continues, I have come to the realization that there is nothing I can say or do that will ever satisfy the people that believe there is a cover-up and that the family was murdered by the government or agents acting on behalf of the government. I have a problem with that statement. You will never satisfy anybody who has questions because you have no proof. You have a theory, and yet you're getting mad at, or whatever, you're talking about all these other people who have these conspiracy theories about the government. It doesn't have to be a conspiracy theory with the government. It doesn't have to necessarily involve the government. This isn't the Democrat or the Republican. This isn't he killed his family or the government killed him. There's a lot of other options here. There's a lot of other choices here that he's not really talking about. Nowhere in my 21 questions or nowhere in my responses or in my email exchanges with him did I say anything about the government or that David Crowley was killed by the government or anything. Foul play, yes. I think he will never satisfy many of the people who believe that there is foul play, whatever that foul play is, wherever it leads, because they have no case. He has no case, no evidence, no proof. It's all theory. But it's the only theory that police were willing to look at from day one. It's very important there. He says, I will also never be able to satisfy people's opinion that our department did a poor job investigating this incident, even though most, if not all, of the critics have never spent a day doing what we do. That's what's really sad, because even us people, us hundreds, thousands of people who have never spent a day doing what you do, sir, we can still see the flaws in this case, and yet you cannot. So what does that say about you? What does that say about your department? It's disgusting to me. It's a joke. I think that's really sad when us regular people can see these simple things and ask questions and you can't. So, let's see. I am not sure where you fall in your opinions, but I would hope we could agree on one point. that the lives lost in that home have greatly affected their families. Well, duh. Of course they've affected their families. I think we owe it to their families to move on and let them live in peace. Yes, we do. But we also owe it to the families and the friends to get some kind of answers, not just speculation and then be bullied into just thinking that what the government told us is true, or what the FBI, or what the police in this case told us is true. Without the evidence, you're asking us to just trust you and just believe whatever you say. Well, that's a foolish thing to ask for, first of all. Something you should never ask for. And second of all, I feel it's very disrespectful to the family and to the friends to not give the evidence, or to just give it to some who happen to believe that the official theory is true. So, there's that. Now, let's see. They have suffered enough, and continual discussion on this case serves no purpose. Well, it would serve no purpose. I would agree with that. It would serve no purpose if we had the answers. Something we've been trying to do for a whole year. You and your department are fueling more speculation by not answering these simple questions. Let's see. Moving forward, I will no longer answer any other questions regarding this case. Time has come for our department to move on. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Take care, Jim. Well, I hope one day Mr. Gummert will change his mind and will come to the conclusion that, hey, our department, not only could we have done a better job, but we never proved our case. And I think that's the sad truth here, is the case that they laid out was never proven, and it never will be proven. And that is why your department is actually fueling more speculation by not answering some of these questions sooner, and by leaving so many doors open because of how your department, yourself included, and the officers involved, whoever has the jurisdiction to make those calls, because of what you did and because of how you handled this case, those questions will linger on because you have not provided the answers. You have no answers. All you have is a theory. Well, what is your theory based on? Belief. Okay? I don't have a theory. Aside from the fact that you have not proven your theory. You never will. And I know it doesn't matter. You're not trying to prove it to me. And hey, if the family and the friends want to believe your theory and you feel that that's good enough, cool. That's your choice. But it's my choice to find out what the truth is here. And we will find out. The Lord is merciful. Christ be with us. We will find out. If it's His will, we will know. And no one, just like Citra's father told Dan Hennon, no one will escape the judgment of God. No one. We will all be judged for everything. Everything we've done, everything we've thought, every bad thing. Every good thing, I guess, too. But now you have to live with that. Are you satisfied? Were you satisfied? Is anybody satisfied? I'm not.